Today we're going to chat about a topic that, is something that we talk about a lot, but it's not something that I want to bring to you in December videos or November videos or December videos, because it's something that is so powerful to the habitat improvement of your property, and but it's something that you do not want to do early. Hence the reason that I don't talk about hinge cutting too early. I don't talk about food plots too early. I don't talk about the improper steps outside of the focus, the line of focus, or the thought process that you should be focused on. And so today in the cabin here, we got a bunch of running to do this afternoon. I'm in between projects. Next week is a really busy weekend. I've actually got a day here at the house, and we're catching up on some stuff, and I wanted to shoot this video here to go through and start the process of let's get in the field and let's start putting those saws to work after. And a big topic here is after the thought process and the designs have been done, and you feel very, very confident about that creation that either you've reached out to me and we've created, or you've designed yourself through the aid of these videos, and you feel very, very confident about finally putting that saw to work in the right location. The thing that we're talking about today, guys, is we're talking about the hub style bedding areas. And it's even just saying hub style bedding areas is I love these hub style bedding areas, especially when we're talking about doe bedding areas, is because it's such a drama focused area that you need to place the attention on these the attention of those critters in one location. And it helps the property, it helps your property so much by being able to do that. And it's just something that a lot of folks, like I said, and you'll hear me during this video, you're going to hear me say the word tornado bedding areas 100 times. And that's why I feel so strongly about these the directional hinge cutting and the hub style bedding areas when we're talking about creating bedding, is because it takes all of the you hinge cut a tree, you lay it down, and then you got to go in and you destroy so much of the tree correcting what you just laid down. Now, I understand that obviously the trees are going to be leaning over in some spots and they're not going to go where you want them to go. But do your best to design that, lay that out before you start cutting. Lay these hubs out before you start cutting underneath these trees, which way they're tipped. And so let's go to the board here and let's talk about the ins and outs of the hub style bedding area on the edge of a food plot, and why that we're going to start talking about the hub style bedding areas here more, and where to place these critters, how to create them, and where to put those trees. These hubs might look very in depth, and they might look very confusing when you see them from the just a normal drawing, or if you follow along with my designs, or if I've been to your property. Obviously the ins and outs. We go over this from top to bottom to make sure that you understand these hub styles. But here's a little bit tighter diagram, and they're really simple to create. I've got this one drawn out to kind of speed up the process here a little bit. This one here is obviously on a long linear plot, that could, depending on which way that lays out on your property, could be, this could be facing the north. I mean, this could be in many different ways. But the biggest thing here is to focus on the layout and understand, how the plot and the corridors inside of the bedding area, how they connect. And the reason why I feel so why I feel that these are so powerful is, like I touched on earlier, you guys, in the beginning of this video, is I really believe that the one of the biggest mistakes is this whole tornado effect when folks make a bedding area. And by tornado I mean just you have your plot here, and this is just a bunch of random hinge cutting all over the bedding area. And obviously smaller the parcels, the closer the bedding area, the doe bedding area comes closer to the food plot. And like I said, it's if it's confusing to you, if you can't navigate through it, then obviously it's too confusing for the deer. And so how do I cure that? One of the biggest things here is we'll touch on a couple topics here, guys. So the reason that I do these hub style designs, one is it puts three, I guess you could say four, but this is the center point of impact here, but this impact on your plot. But I always speak in terms of three entrances and exits out of the food plot. So you've got 1, 2, 3. A lot of issues that I find is folks will just dump all of the does into one part of the plot, and yes, they get out here and they mingle with each other, and they bypass each other. But it's something about that initial. It's something about that initial escape to their own little pocket of a food plot. And this food plot might be 50 yards long. It might be 300 yards long. It all depends on what fits your property. But there's just something about giving these does, and a doe and a fawn, or a small doe herd, a brat pack, if you will, or whatever that case is. It's something to be very strong to be said about putting them in their own little areas. And what that does is it just promotes, and it just keeps the flow of the does leaving the bedding area. It keeps it unrestricted, so it doesn't back up internal, which creates everything backing up internal of your more internal of the farm, and it gets to a situation where minutes become seconds, become minutes, minutes become 10 minutes, and in a hunting situation, 10 minutes could be put you outside of that that daylight shot opportunity that you need within hunting hours. And it's just it's a game of inches, if you will. So yeah, touching on this, guys, so that's one of the reasons that I do these. The other reason is this. One of the biggest reasons is in a tornado effect bedding area, you do not have the capability of creating controlled pockets, or controlled, what I call cubicles. So all of these areas to me are cubicles in a tornado effect bedding area. When you create a tornado effect inside of these, when you just there's no random thought process to or it is a random thought process. There's no controlled aspect of hinge cutting. You create these tornadoes in here, and they have to physically find a way to navigate through that. And what you're going to find is, guys, a lot of times in a bedding area that I walk into, probably 8 out of 10 that aren't focused on a hub style situation, or it's too much, or it's not, it's up against a hill, or whatever the case is, they will bed as if it's not a hub style design. What you're going to find is you're going to find random beds scattered all the way outside of this, and then if they can find a pocket that is easy accessible into it, they'll start accessing that and bed in. It's very random, but what I see the most of is it's one of two things on client properties. It's either, or properties that I walk onto, it's either there's not enough structure for bedding area that gives you enough side cover, or there's too much and the deer can't navigate through it. So this to me is a very thought out, it's kind of a engineered aspect that I came up with years ago that I started using on these farms, is because the main reason is, guys, is that one of the biggest reasons is just, it has to be, it's so functional. And yes, I mean, obviously there's deer that are going to bed in these corridors, and I mean, they do their own things. But the more deer that you can put, the more does, the more drama that you can put out on the edge of these food plots, and not be bedded directly on the food plot, and then just creating, anytime a doe enters the food plot, they're blowing other deer off. And if a mature buck does enter from the side here, let's say, the does all vanish. This creates such a controlled environment that it's very powerful. Now, inside of these bedding areas, what do you do with your trees, right? We always talk about the directional hinge cutting. To me, there's hinge cutting, and then there's directional hinge cutting. There's hinge cutting that folks do too high. It's and the rule of thumb is, don't do your no high cuts. And I'm going to write this on the board here so everybody continues to see this. It's mid or waist high cut. So in other words, 3 foot cuts, 3 to 4 foot cuts is what you're looking for. And the reason for that is we're going to draw a quick diagram here. But if you have, and then we'll resource back up here so we can talk about directional hinge cutting, guys. But if you take a trunk of a tree and you hinge cut this tree too high, and it's up here, now you've got 6 foot here at the ground level. This tree now, after you hinge this, this trunk of this tree is going to come down all the way down to here before it branches out into your tops, and before you get any of this valuable sought after usable browse that's the side cover and browse that you're trying to reach in a hinge cut. There's 6 foot, so I'm 6'6", so it takes me, let's say that this is a 60-foot tree. From here, you only have about 10% of your tree that you're using that is reachable for a deer, and that to me is where high hinge cuts don't. It's one thing because of the barber chairs. It's another thing to have that going into the barber chair coming back at your face. It's another thing going into habitat. We're doing this to so the deer can reach. You want those hinge cuts. You want those hinge cuts low. So as soon as you get your ground, your ground is here, and you want those hinge cuts hitting immediately, so your tree is here, and then the tops are. As soon as you get that down here, the tops is this thing is all usable all the way through here, and then as this regenerates, all this these shoots regenerate all the way through here. They are now, it becomes a reachable. This is only 3 foot like we talked. From here to the hinge, or 3 to 4 foot waist height, let's say, and all of this. So now the deer come up here, and they can not only eat the browse that's gonna generate off the stump here, and even the stump itself. They're able to reach all this. They're able to reach this. So maybe it's not 100%, but when you do low hinge cuts, guys, it's 90% of that is usable for those critters, and that's a huge misstep. So I guess just keep that in mind when you're doing these hinge cuts, and why you create these hinge cuts, and why they're so powerful versus a high hinge cut. So let's go back up here and talk about directional. So when you hear me talk about directional hinge cuts, this is why I do this. Now you can directional hinge cut along a transition areas, to the outside, along lines of travel. But as we're talking today, we're talking about directional hinge cutting inside of the hub style bedding area, and today's topic obviously is inside of doe bedding areas. So these here are, when I say directional hinge cuts, I always recommend doing is you can lay some of these trees down, let's say this way, along your food plot, to kind of give you some plot screening, because obviously I don't promote the hunting of the plot, so you're not putting these here to protect the visual aspect of getting in and out of this plot. Let's say there's no tree stand right here, and so it's not that you want to walk in here and hunt this tree stand. You're not worried about getting in and out of there, because you shouldn't be hunting the plot anyway. There's that's a separate video, and that's why we don't do this, is because obviously this is you're just creating that natural edge along that plot. And that just gives that little more, security. As far as the directional aspect of the hinge is anywhere along of these, 3 to 5 foot wide corridors, I always directional hinge cut, and we directional hinge cut to the outside of the corridor. So in other words, these trees all get tipped in here. This tree along here gets tipped to the outside, and this might be, depending on if you're lucky and you have enough. The correct size of the tree, like we've talked before, guys, and it's that 6-8 inch tree, and this is where you're enhancing these bedding areas. Obviously you get lucky and you can put a lot of structure on the ground in the right places, but as you'll see here, is we'll go down through here and we'll do these here, and then I'll tie. When we get to here, this is where folks get themselves into trouble, is down here because of the top issue. But here, these are real simple. You just go through here and you tip these to the outside. Obviously the outside meaning these are going to be on the inside. Here's an issue right here. Don't overlap your tops. Make sure that you've got this navigation, this path through here. And by doing that, trees go where they will sometimes, and you might have to, cut a limb or two off these to bypass. The thing that you don't want to do is what we'll talk about down here, is you don't want to tip these trees to the inside here, have a tree here, and you don't want to go right directly on the other, off the other side here, and directional hinge cut right into the top of it. And now you've got this wad mess. Now you've blocked the movement inside of this corridor. But what also you've done, now you got to go in there and you got to cut the top of that tree out. And by doing that, now you've just ruined valuable amounts of your potential browse. And so you want to space these out. So in other words, you come down this side here, you're going to be here with one, you're going to be here, let's say you're going to be here. What I do is I come over here and I go in between these now. So what that creates is that, I mean, this is a way blown out outlook of this, guys, but you can see the theory here is these are all tipped in. Now inside of this, you might have 2 or 3 trees along the way here. The object is just don't plug the center of this up, because what you're trying to promote is you're trying to promote this theory here, where these deer can come in and use this pocket if they don't want to turn and come right back out back into the corridor to continue to travel. They can go inside here of these, and this creates this maze effect all the way through, all the way through here. And obviously these are, this is, so you can see that it's cut out, but there's not just a brush pile wall here that creates these, so they can walk directly out here. What you're doing by that, guys, is it just keeps these, critters moving in here. It's got plenty of side cover. These deer, depending on the wind, now can use either side of this. They could bed here, they could bed here. There's going to be beds. And once you see this, especially the tops, they really like to crawl next to the tops here. If the tops aren't on top of each other, like we talked. So, I mean, you just continue to go around the entire hub here doing this. And, what you're going to find is, when after you get this together, how much value by doing this that you can put on the ground for usable habitat. And even here to the outside on this pocket out here, this cubicle that I call them, that's out here to the outside, is you create so much. I mean, there's just so much usable product that you can use here. But instead of it all being just a tangled mess, it's all there for a reason, and it's all has its purpose. And I mean, you just put these, like I said, you might have to lay one here, this way, or this one here. You come up here and you tip these in. You got 2 on one side, 1 on the other, because these are obviously small pockets. But you don't want to under hinge. You want to, obviously you're trying to create the most value for that as you possibly can. But keep in mind that this is a huge tool to just make sure that this flow is not interrupted. And these should be out here a little bit farther, obviously, but to keep this flow uninterrupted so they can access back to the corridors. What you're creating, guys, is when havoc enters somewhere, a mature buck enters somewhere, he's not gonna blow the entire plot out. And by chasing 2 does out, he doesn't clear the entire plot out. You're setting the stage to have a very productive cruising area here. Huge potential for rut stands, is because you're creating this arc, and that these bucks can scent check this on let's say it's a north wind, and he's coming through the bottom side of this arch here. He can scent check this entire bedding area before he even enters it. And that's where stand placements come in on the outsides of this, with your looking branches at the points of impact where these hit. So, and then they continue down, your transition areas continue down the outsides of your properties, creating more opportunity for stand locations in here. So you can see the power of this hub, guys. And you know, I've had folks ask me like, why in the world do you put this stuff out on social media? People are going to be using this, and I hope you do. I really hope that a lot of people start talking about the hub style bedding areas. Obviously you're going to know where it came from, and you know, I'm not here to make a royalty off the hub style bedding. I'm here to promote this out there so folks can really understand how powerful this is. So as you can see, guys, we just went through kind of step by step here. Have a lot of questions this time of the year about the hub style design, and that kind of, I hope, will clarify for you some questions that have you know, came in over time. It's a very powerful tool. The biggest thing is like I said, that's why I haven't went down the road of talking about hinge cuts, talking about bedding areas, talking about you know, how to do this, how to do that, is because this obviously is a piece of the puzzle that is done after you have well thought out these areas. Your design, you feel very confident on it. Whether you reach out to me or not, you really feel that you're taking the information that you're gathering from these videos, and your design is something that's going to put you on the map this 2021 season. And you know that you can get in and out of those stand locations. And the best way to enhance that habitat when we're talking doe bedding areas is placing them nearest the food, and like I always say, is the smaller the parcel, the closer those does need to be to that bedding area. And when you start looking into this, into the functionality of these hub style designs, like I said, guys, when I started using these years ago, what created this is because, you know, like I said earlier, is what created this is the thought process that when I was going in, or what I was seeing, let's say, you know, this tornado effect bedding areas are just absolutely devastating. There's so much destruction that's done with a chainsaw that folks just don't understand that they can. It's a lot easier for yourself. It's a lot easier for the deer if you understand the meaning behind directional hinge cutting.